Hello, this is Rob Curley. I am the editor of the Spokesman-Review, and I'd like to welcome you all to today's Northwest Passages Community Forum. We've moved them to streaming, and it's been great because we've been able to talk to so many people because they don't have to drive to Spokane. So it's worked out great for us. So today is going to be a super interesting conversation. We are with the leadership team of the community colleges here in the Spokane region, including we have Christine Johnson, who's the chancellor of all of those, Kevin Brockbank, who's the president of SCC, and then Kimberlee Messina, who is the president of the Falls. So welcome to all of you. Thank you for being a part of this.
Thank you.
Rob.
Thank you.
So are you, not to be too nosy, but are you in your offices or at home?
I'm in my office.
I'm in my office as well.
I snuck into the office for this because of internet. Otherwise, I've been in the basement.
Yeah, I'm in the guest room. So welcome to my guest room. So I wanted to start off straight into what COVID and the coronavirus, all the implications of that has meant to your institutions. And I want to talk a lot about the differences between community college and four-year colleges, but let's start with what has happened immediately, because you all are on the quarter system, right? Is that right?
Correct.
So you had to start pretty quickly. Were you able to? What's it looked like? Dr. Johnson, could you start us off?
Well, I would start by saying that we have really outstanding colleges and outstanding leadership, faculty, and staff. So the response to the COVID was unexpected in terms of its speed, but having the presidents and their leadership team and amazing faculty and staff, we responded immediately, and the colleges can tell you what they're doing. Our priorities, of course, like for everyone else, student and employee safety and health. So just all in on keeping everyone safe and healthy. And the presidents can tell you about the amazing work our faculty have done. Unbelievable, amazing, historic work.
Well, and I'd love to talk to some specifics about that, but let's hit each president now to catch up what you're doing on your campuses right now related to COVID. Kevin, will you start us off?
Sure. I think one of the things that's important that while we were on the quarter system, we had kind of a lucky break there where we were kind of finishing out one quarter while this started to develop and then start into our spring quarter. And so we were able to extend spring break, and we gave ourselves some time. And frankly, it was really an impressive effort over a short amount of time, but we were able to stretch that out a little bit so our faculty were able to get prepared to deliver things online. And, moving everything online for at least the first 3 weeks for us was real challenging. But like Dr. Johnson said, the team effort of our faculty and staff and support services was frankly just incredible. And we're off to a great start this quarter. I think things have gone far better than any of my wildest dreams. And there's some real positive and inspiring stories here because of it.
And I hope we can hit on some of those. Kimberlee, sure. Tell what's happening out of the Falls.
Yeah, I would agree. I'd build upon what President Brockbank said in the sense that we did catch a lucky break by being able to have some planning time before we started the spring quarter. It was a great collaborative effort, not only with faculty and staff on both campuses, but we really do need to applaud our e-learning team who just stepped right in and supported us with professional development for faculty. Right at the last moment, doing virtual classes for faculty who had not taught online before, or to help those who were doing that. So that was a huge plus. We're also lucky to build upon a very successful and robust online program that both colleges have had for many years. And so it was a matter of building. We had to pivot very quickly, and there were some who had never done it, but we had a structure in place that really enabled us to provide quality instruction. And I'll agree with Kevin, there's some stories of just amazing and heroic efforts with faculty and staff. One of the things that we did build on that was relatively new for us was student services online, and that has been truly amazing, and we'll maybe talk more about that as you go forward.
Yes, I would like that. So not to kind of go to like the 101 level, but I really want for those who don't understand the role of a community college in a higher education system, will you all help us explain that so that people really understand the differences between a 2-year and 4-year?
So let me start, and I know the presidents have always a lot to add. First of all, I always like to say, we're an American invention, and community college is the only higher ed sector started here, and there are some 90 world economies trying to imitate that. The really distinctive thing about us is our mission, and that is that we take pride in including everybody. We welcome every student from all walks of life at all phases of their life. So whether it's the 16-year-old Running Start student, the high school graduate, or the person with a baccalaureate degree that is shifting gears and for a variety of reasons, or the adult who at 55 loses a job and is retooling and reskilling. So we take pride in our inclusivity, and I think that's very distinct. We don't have admission standards. Everyone is welcome, and then we help them move along. Many of our students, of course, are honor students, very talented. Again, a good many students already have prior degrees, and then we're excellent about helping students find a career. And at the end of the day, we know people want jobs, and we are especially well aligned to the regional industries. The secret sauce of community colleges is we are America's colleges, and we're tightly linked to the communities we serve. And so the West Side community colleges have different programs to meet that economy versus ours. And that is really, really something that makes us able to pivot in the way we serve. And I like to say, flexibility and responsiveness are in our DNA. We respond to the challenge and we do it well. And I know Kevin and Kimberlee have a lot to say.
Kimberlee, would you like to add to that?
Well, sure. I mean, I think the Chancellor is absolutely correct. We are the, workforce engine of this country. People do come to community colleges, not only because of high quality education, small class size, and affordability, which are very important, but also because we are more able to be flexible and be directly connected to the industries in the community. Four-year universities have a different mission and are much more of the academy, if you will. And so they perform a very important function, but it is distinct from ours. At the Falls, one of the things that we do have, besides an excellent workforce program, is we are a premier transfer institution. So we also have all of the full academic programs, and many of our students do transfer. But as the Chancellor said, it's about jobs. Whether you're going to get a 2-year degree, a certificate, or a 4-year degree, you're going to go to work. And so we really pride ourselves in being in tune with that with the community.
Yeah. So I'm going to keep going on because you wouldn't believe how many questions have started to come in. I mean, I want to talk a little bit about the economics of a community college. I think, and I had a discussion a few weeks ago with the leaders of the 4-year universities around the region. And it became painfully obvious that, one of the things that they're very worried about budget-wise, they're always worried about budget, let's be honest, but they're really worried this year because such a substantial part of their budgets are made through tuition. They're worried about how this adds up. Are community colleges in that same boat? Because I don't understand how tuition works, because tuition traditionally is so much lower at a community college.
I'll start, and then I know Kevin will want to jump in as well. Our cost model is different, and part of it is, we're commuter campuses largely. A few community colleges across the country do have dorms, but that's a big difference. And, our tuition is very affordable, which is what makes us attractive. Students don't have to, end up in debt that they can't pay down the road. And so our affordability is, the tuition is affordable, but we very much need state support. And the investment, we think we're a winning investment because the students go to work, and we take many students out of poverty, and they become productive citizens, in their own families and also for the larger society. So we really again, an investment that pays off in a very different cost model. And we take pride in that. But I do want to say, we too worry about the state budget, and we believe that the state would be wise in not cutting us because we're the solution to the economic recovery.
Kevin?
Yeah, I think that's great lead in by Dr. Johnson. We do have a little different model, and certainly when you have this new reality in higher education, we try to figure out where's our place in that. And one of the things I think we have an advantage with, and I think it makes us look like a good opportunity for prospective students, is the idea that we're not a resident campus. And so, I think if you have a high school student who maybe would have been going off to university this fall with some uncertainties, you see the idea that, hey, at a lower cost and less, fewer variables, I can have that individual stay at home and earn some credits that are transferable across there. It makes this a real opportunity and a real great landing place for students who are a little bit uncertain. And like Dr. Johnson said too, I think we look like a great opportunity for those individuals who are on rough times right now. I think you look at the good things about this and you see that a student or an individual who's going through some rough times right now is going to be looking at, how do I reinvent myself, and how do I put myself so I'm not in the most unsecure position in the company the next time something like this happens. And there's just no better time at all for a person to reinvent themselves, and whether that's to come back for a workforce degree or to start your first 2 years and get your transfer degree set up so you can head off to your four-year institution of your choosing. Like, there's some real positive things to look at that I think make the community colleges look like an opportunity when things are tough. And so we love the position we play in this whole higher ed arena right now. Love it.
So that leads to a kind of an historical question for me. If you look in the past, recessions have typically been a moment where community colleges have really seen their student bodies increase because of every reason that you just mentioned, Kevin. So this is not a recession, but are we thinking that's what's going to happen again? I mean, very much tied to the 2008 recession was kind of the idea that in communities like Spokane, community colleges often acted kind of like the spear of the economic recovery. I mean, they're learning, people are learning skills to either protect their livelihood or advance their livelihood or just pivot and change careers. With COVID, is that similar sort of thing about to happen? And I know you all can't make predictions like that or say in the future, but is that something that we think might happen again?
Well, so I'll start on this one, and again, the presidents will add. We are cautiously optimistic. We recognize that we haven't been through a pandemic, in our case, ever. And so we're not quite sure how everything is going to work, but we know that governors and legislators and businesses want to restore the economy as quickly as possible, and that's the role we play. So I think we've got a great business community here, lots of engaged citizens, very fine higher ed institutions with whom we partner well, and we do think that we will attract students who want that shorter time to finish a certificate that leads them some other way, and then our degree programs are structured in such a way that there are many certificates, kind of micro certificates that lead to other skills. So, we really believe in the lifelong learning. So I think we're going to be attracting not only the high school age students, but also the adult student body, which is one of our core competencies.
Yeah. Kimberlee?
I would just add to that. I think that's absolutely, Dr. Johnson's absolutely spot on. One of the things that we have noticed, all of us, in reading the news and listening to the stories and talking with students and faculty and staff is, a great deal of uncertainty about what's happening in next fall, what's happening with, this virus and how does that impact us. And I think one of the things about the community colleges that are particularly attractive in a time of uncertainty is people can stay at home, although we're all kind of anxious to maybe get out of home. We're also worried about doing that. So we can stay at home. We don't have that issue of the residential dorms. And if we need to flex or pivot, we're doing face-to-face, but we need to go back to online, Community colleges, and particularly Community College of Spokane, we have some of the best success rates in the country for online education. They're comparable to face-to-face, which is actually not the case in many other states and community colleges, as well as four-year universities. So if students have to make that decision, if parents decide, you know, I don't know if I want to spend the money to send them away to a dorm, they can be here and they can be getting a high-quality education and not missing out and not stopping out and having that sort of gap time. So I think it's budget related, but it's quality related as well.
Absolutely.
Could I add something to that, Rob? I definitely want to add something onto this about how this relates to our local employers. And there's a dynamic that happens when the economy is good and when the economy is bad at our higher ed institutions at community college, which is when things are really great, like they were 8 weeks ago, there's a lot of job opportunities out there for people that make livable wages, that provides them some rewards and some sense of security. And when those things go, and when that's happening, it's really hard for somebody to talk themselves into taking time and money out of their life to go back to the college for 2 years and get upskilled training when it maybe is only going to lead to what they currently are experiencing. And then when we have an event like this where we've got unprecedented amount of unemployment, we have people that are coming back. And like I said earlier, this is a great time to reinvent yourself and get tooled up and get skilled and trained. And here's how it affects our local economy is when a few months ago, we were really challenged by the fact that we didn't have as many students coming in the door, while our healthcare providers, manufacturers, IT firms, business firms were desperate for employees, and we couldn't produce enough. Yeah. Now when we have more students come in the door and we start filling up those programs, and as the economy starts to restart itself, it will provide, we're going to have more people in a skilled trade and in a skilled environment or heading towards their bachelor's degree or whatever they end up doing. And so what that does is it really helps our economy with a greater number of trained individuals to restart. And so it helps us as a whole region, I think, for those things to happen. So there's some real positives that can come out of this stop and restart in my mind.
So this is a good time for us to switch to some of these reader questions because they tie in perfectly to what you're all saying. The first two kind of tie together, so I'm going to pull them together. Dan would like to know, how will community colleges respond if students aren't allowed back in the lecture classrooms for all of next year or through the end of this year? And Nicole wanted to know, what are the plans for classes? So I know that those are kind of different but similar. Could you all jump in and answer Dan and Nicole's questions for us?
You want to start, Dr. Messina?
Sure. Yeah, thanks. Well, at the falls, because we do have a different mix of programming than Spokane Community College, so we have a large number of classes that typically are and can be online anyway. So although our intent for the fall is to have face-to-face classes where appropriate, we are scheduling more online than we normally would, and we are also scheduling a large number of courses in what we call a hybrid modality, which is to say that it has a face-to-face component and online, so that if for some reason we do need to pivot very quickly, the students and faculty already have the technology, they already have the Canvas shell, they're already used to engaging online, and we can shift to that very quickly without having disruption for students or for faculty. We have a few courses, few programs that are really relying on that face-to-face. Those are our allied health programs and some specialized equipment and art, but we are ready and prepared so that we are hoping to offer as much face-to-face as is possible and necessary, but we are also completely prepared if we need to switch.
If you do the face-to-face, what does that look like in the classroom with social distancing and those sorts of things?
You know, I could answer that, but I'm going to let Kevin, President Brockbank, do that because he has so many more programs that are face-to-face and he probably can add to that.
Yeah, so that's an interesting thing I think we didn't really kind of cover too. That our two institutions have a little bit different program mix. We both provide a transfer element and place for Running Start students, but that's the heavy emphasis at Spokane Falls, and for Spokane Community College, our heavier emphasis is on workforce programs, but still maintain some of those things. But we did learn some things in this switch over to the stay home order. And one of the fortunate things that's happened for us is in the last governor's proclamation, he did allow essential programs to come back on campus for specialized lab usage. And when we say essential programs, those are the programs that provide employees to the essential occupations. So whether that's firefighting or actually restaurants fall under that. So we crosswalk that across. And so we've got numerous programs on campus right now. And over the last 2 weeks, we've learned an awful lot of lessons about personal protective equipment, social distancing, how we use our labs, how we direct traffic, sign-ins for contact testing, student self-assessment, and those things. And so I think that what I feel good about is we've learned a lot of lessons about how to pivot very quickly and efficiently, both to an online environment and then also back in the restart to a different environment with a different set of safety protocols and guidelines and how to follow those things. And I will tell you, this is the really cool thing about what's happening on campus now with that stuff is when our faculty and students came back, my concern was that would feel like an inconvenience for them and a real barrier. And you know what you see when you walk around is faculty who are doing incredibly innovative and creative things in their labs to make sure that they're safe and they're following the rules. I could go on and on about that. You know, the first day I saw the culinary program out on the lawn teaching so that they could social distance. They're now in a exercise where they're developing a curbside delivery sort of format, which is something that they're going to be dealing with in the industry. Different spacing and things. There's some really, really cool stuff. And then just the overall appreciation by our faculty and students of being able to be back, working in their craft, teaching and learning, and those students getting the chance to graduate here in June. Like that, I will tell you, it's energizing and inspiring to see that on campus when we've been turned so upside down over the last 8 weeks. It's been really great the last couple of weeks to have a little taste of that on campus.
Since you've had students on campus because of these essential programs, have there been any unexpected problems that you're like, oh, I should have seen that coming? Because you really are ahead of the game on all of this. I mean, you're getting to see things that the rest of us aren't.
I'll tell you, we have a handful of them every day because we're dealing with all kinds of different labs, whether it's automotive or culinary, welding, machining, these specialized, and each of those takes a special little flavor to figure out how to make those work. And so a lot of case-by-case things that go on. But as a general sort of a response to that, I would say we were really great about being able to implement safety protocols across all those programs, get people the things they needed, get students masks and gloves and those kinds of things. Yes, it was hectic and a little chaotic, but I think we really nailed it. And I think you can see it in the students and the faculty when you walk around and see them teaching in a whole new environment. And it just boils back to, hey, our faculty are dedicated to the learning environment or the learning process, and our students are part of it too. So it's been really good. There's always little things, Rob, that pop up every single day, and we've just been addressing them as we go. But it's been really good.
That brings up such an interesting point, because you were talking about some of the programs that have been deemed essential, where most people would be surprised, but then they think about what real life looks like, and they're like, of course that would be deemed essential. But interestingly enough, you didn't talk about what healthcare looks like, and I know that's the one thing that most of us, many people are surprised what's deemed essential. I mean, no one was more surprised than my family that journalism was deemed essential. So, but we all know healthcare is. So what have you seen, and what are in those early programs now with you? I mean, there's all sorts of questions about whether nurses are going to bail. I mean, like, we didn't get into this profession for it to be this stressful, or will it be more like journalists who are like, we totally got into this profession for it to be this stressful?
Yeah.
So
I think that's an incredibly great question, Rob, and one that we don't necessarily have the answer to yet. But it's great because it highlights what the community colleges have and do, which is, I can't wait. At some point here soon, we're going to need to have that conversation with Providence and Multicare and other healthcare providers to talk about what does healthcare look like in the next year. There's going to be some things that are going to be different. We just haven't had the bandwidth, and neither have they over the last little bit of time here to do that. But that's a really inspiring sort of exercise to work with our local employers. And every program has an advisory group that has healthcare professionals on it, or depending on the industry. And former students who come back and contribute and start So they'll be talking about things like contact tracing and temperatures and symptoms and things that weren't part of it before. And like I said earlier, I walk around and I see our faculty already embracing that idea that, hey, the new workplace is going to look a little different in these different places. And of course, our healthcare faculty are so on top of it. They really do live for this. That this is the thing. But what that's going to mean to the healthcare industry is something that we're going to have to work really hard with our local employers on to make sure that we have the right things in our programs and we look at learning outcomes that might need to be added so that we're providing qualified employees to them. But those are exciting things. I think if you're not excited about that and you're in higher ed, you're in the wrong business.
And Rob, I'd like to chime in just to say a few more things about the whole healthcare industry. Because people may not know that our community colleges of Spokane, at both colleges, we have 40 different degrees and certificates that prepare the health workforce. And, essentially, every role that is in a hospital or clinic, and the technicians, clearly not the MDs, but are all our graduates. And they are recruited across the country for their skills. At SFCC, Kimberlee can tell you about other programs where the students are recruited nationally, and at SCC, there isn't a role, when I think we prepare respiratory therapists at SCC, well, they are playing a major role in this pandemic and more needed. And so that's just to illustrate the level of connection we have to the industries of our region. And again, I just have to say, having just toured SCC yesterday, we want you to go, Rob. You will be so inspired. You will be so inspired by the students and the faculty. Unbelievable, unbelievable.
I'm going to do it, because I need some training. I don't know if you've read. Journalism is a little bit of, we're in trouble right now. So one of the important themes in community colleges, especially here in Spokane, has been making sure those who might not normally be able to afford higher learning can. And Kimberlee, I'd like to ask you, one of the things that I think has really jumped out during this pandemic is the lack of access to internet. I mean, you talked about how important online learning was going to be, especially if you couldn't bring in a bunch. To fill that role, how do you solve the problem that your students might not have computers that at home, they might not have internet access? I work with programmers a lot, and when something is very hard, they call that a non-trivial problem. This feels like a non-trivial problem. How do you work on that, Kimberlee?
Yeah, thank you. And there's probably multi-levels to this conversation. I think one of the things we figured out at both colleges, and with the support of our IT folks and particularly our amazing financial aid folks and our foundation, was we had the capacity to invest in the actual technology itself. We bought more laptops, which we were able to loan out to students and faculty and staff. We also were able to give emergency aid so students could buy those the computers that they needed. So we found that to be a manageable problem. The bigger challenge really, which is the access to reliable internet. And that is an equity issue everywhere, but particularly here in Eastern Washington, where in rural areas, there is not that access. It's not like you can just purchase it for them. It doesn't necessarily exist. And with the stay-home order, we were unable to do what we normally would do, which is open up computer labs to allow students to come in and use our internet. So we've worked on that. We've worked as a district to try to increase our Wi-Fi capacity for our parking lots, for example. That hasn't been a perfect solution. I think the good news is that we've learned a lot from this crisis this quarter. And if we end up being much more online in the fall, we will have much better ways to provide internet access for students. But it's been a real critical issue. And I think it brings home the fact that there are some basic necessities of life, and we never knew till now, internet is a basic necessity. People can't work from home, they can't study from home, their kids can't get their K-12 education. So it's been a real eye-opener for us.
Yeah, I think it's been eye-opening for everybody. I don't think we ever thought of the internet as a necessity until it became the way that we would learn and communicate with each other. So one of the things that I wanted to ask you all about is, it feels like, and I might have this wrong, but I feel like a higher percentage of your students are parents than at most universities. How do you handle that sort of learning environment in a pandemic, in that sort of situation?
Yeah, I'll start, and then I'm sure Dr. Messina has some stuff to add. I think we've found through some of the data that's been a real challenge for our students with dependents this quarter. We saw a significant decrease in those individuals who had dependents not coming back this quarter, and I think we believe that's because of the issue with we have kids at home, and that's really a strain for our students, and so we had some of them not come back. But I also think we have some really great examples of how our faculty and staff are recognizing that and accommodating those. And I think that the really great example is we have a English instructor, Liz Rowe, who as part of her composition course is not only providing direction, instructions, and guidance for her students, but at the same time, she's providing some guidance for those students' children to follow along. So if they have one topic, the children have another topic that's parallel to it. And she's accommodating and recognizing the fact that, hey, this is the reality of what's happening. And so for our folks to be so aware and conscious of the fact that our students who are parents need that kind of assistance is really, helpful to me. That's the kind of faculty member I want, is somebody who really cares about my life and my world. And so I think that's a great example of somebody doing something extraordinary.
I agree. And if those of you who are watching this could just pretend like you hadn't heard that story, I'll be writing about it later.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful.
So we have lots of questions coming in. So with all of the talk of all the pivots that you're making, Ruthie would like to know how, if any, are staff reductions going to be determined? I mean, what does that look like in an environment like this? And how will you handle something like that?
Well, I'll start by saying we know that there will be reductions by the state. Again, we're going to certainly make our case of why they shouldn't be ominous. However, we expect some state reductions given what we have learned from the governor's meetings on the budget. So we have had a very fair and inclusive process in how we do that. And it begins by asking, I ask and the president support that all employees to give us suggestions for efficiencies and cost reductions. And we ask that we begin kind of in our own unit, don't fix another unit, look at our own area of work. And then, and we've done this before, I mean, not this seriously, not a pandemic, but we've reduced budgets. And what I will say is we have had amazing ideas for efficiencies. And as a result, it has helped us through other budget reductions the state has held. One year, I think it was in 10-11, we had like 2 reductions in the middle of the year. And we ended up doing a lot of consolidations and reduction of areas where we could do differently. It also made us more entrepreneurial. We ended up, our corporate training became very, just the fabulous force it is today. We privatized our libraries to Barnes & Noble runs them. So we did a lot of things to reduce cost and save jobs. And so we will have a similar process. We don't know yet what the percentage of the state cut is, but we're doing what everyone else is doing, looking at, leaving vacant positions, doing things and dropping memberships, all things where we can save money. But we also know and are preparing for the loss of positions. And it'll be through a very strategic process, unit by unit. The colleges will each do, the district office will, but with a lot of input from all employees, and then many task forces where we have a different, anyone who wants to join to be part of the solution will hear a lot of ideas. And you'd be amazed at the creativity and goodwill that we get from that inclusive way of looking at how we do our business. And I have to say, it's a tough stuff because it grieves deeply that we know that there will be reductions, and we're going to do everything we can to keep everyone employed that we can, but we know there will be some job losses. And I know Kevin and Kimberlee have great ideas too.
Well, I hope they're not that great. Let's keep as many people as we can. So
that's our great idea.
Are hard. These are really hard things. I mean, there are these moments where education and the news industry have never been more important. So it's we have to be making the case to people to help support those. So I know how hard that is. Is there anything the two of you would like to add to that discussion? I mean, there are so many questions is why I'm asking. They just keep flowing in.
I think the Chancellor covered it well, and probably going on to other questions would be just fine.
So from Jan, we should like to know, what are the success levels of transfer students from community colleges to four-year schools? And is it better than high school students going directly to four-year?
Well, I haven't looked specifically at this year's data, but I can tell you that typically community college students who transfer outperform students who start as freshmen. So that I think the process of going through the two-year community college enables students to learn how to learn. At least that's what we see in terms of the data. When our students transfer, they tend to transfer in and have a higher GPA and a higher completion level than the quote native freshman students. I don't know.
I would add that the State Board of Community and Technical Colleges does reports on this, and they have looked at this trend line over the years. And what Dr. Messina said is correct, that overall, the transfer students from community colleges outperform the native students who begin their university careas.
Dr. Johnson, is that true in ours too, here in Eastern Washington?
Yes, it is. And again, the data is available through our State Board of Community and Technical Colleges.
Yeah. So Jesse would like to know, what are the most popular programs that might be hard to get into, and how does a prospective student approach the application process for one of those programs?
I'll grab this one. I think probably the most competitive program we have is nursing, probably across both colleges. It's traditionally very competitive. We have some other competitive programs, but what I would advise a prospective student is to really spend some time figuring out which program fits you as an individual. And I think that's one of the things that we realize with our students, whether they're 35-year-old single parent or 18-year-old high school graduate, is Dr. Johnson talked about the 40 healthcare programs we have. Well, many people only recognize nursing. They don't talk about surgical technician, medical assistant, radiology tech, respiratory care. There's all these great professions out there. And I think the important thing for a prospective student is to really spend some time on career exploration, figuring out what you gravitate to, what inspires you. What's the thing you want to do for 30 years that gives you a career that helps you kind of build the life you want to build? And so, the quick answer to that, if you want to fill out an application, you just go to our website and it takes about 2 clicks and you're in there and away you go. But the first thing the application asks you is, which program do you want to be in? And that's not a great way to start. We want you to know what you're inspired by before you get to us, so that we can get you in the right place, so that we can make the rest of your life a success. That's how I would start with.
Yeah, and I would just add, I agree completely, and would just add that we have excellent career counselors here at the Falls, and we really have an emphasis with also our general counseling and our faculty who are programs experts, who really are invested in that meeting with the students, that academic consulting, advising, exploring, so that they can figure out what is right for them. And I think that's something, particularly if you're re-entering the workforce, or trying to pivot and change, or you're a first-time student, it's really invaluable to take advantage of those resources before going on and clicking, because accounting is first in the alphabet. I guess I'll just choose accounting or something. And so we really do have that support available.
So that's maybe I don't understand. So can you go to one of the community colleges career counselors before you've enrolled?
Yes.
You can?
Yes. Absolutely.
So is that part of the secret sauce then? If you really want to do a program, it's not a certain code word I need to put in my application or the certain amount of exclamation points. It's, do I go to the career counselor and get some advice there?
If it were my son, so I have a 16-year-old son, I would send him to our career counselor before he filled out the application.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you both talked about the popularity of the nursing programs. I like the first part of Jesse's question though. What are the most popular programs that aren't nursing? Like what's something we might not we might not go, wow, so give us an example of a few of those.
I'll take that one because I don't have nursing at my college, so that's not the most popular program at my college.
Well, what is at your college?
We have many, but I would say on the more career technical side, right now the program that's sort of in vogue is cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is a critical issue, and now more than ever, as we've been home and relying on the internet, companies and educational institutions are seeing that is a real necessity. We have both an associate's degree. We also have an applied bachelor's degree in cybersecurity. We are expanding that program to also have a fully online component as well as face-to-face because of the need to increase that. So that is definitely a program that is really popular right now. We also have, of course, other allied health programs that are, we have which was not deemed essential, and I was really sad about that. We have an orthotics and prosthetics program that is one of only 6 in the country. So when and every student gets a job, it's just they get a job across the entire country because there are only so many jobs in Spokane. But people come from all over. We have a hearing instrument program that helps prepare people for to assess hearing loss and help people with hearing devices. Again, that's a regional draw. Our occupational therapy assistant program and our physical therapy assistant program, they come from all over the region. We have people who come from different states to come here. And then the falls, even though people don't consider it essential, you'll notice as soon as we got home on these stay home, the opera and the museums, and the local theaters were all live streaming all of their performances. So art is essential. And we at the Falls have an amazing fine arts program, visual and performing arts program that students really do come from all over and are very popular with our Running Start students as well. So quite a diversity.
Yeah, I want to go ahead.
I just had to interject because we're so proud of the success at the Falls that our cybersecurity program is nationally recognized as a center of excellence, and that's a big deal because it was a program developed, jointly with Department of Defense, NSA, and some Stanford professors who picked us to work with, and it's an amazing program. So that national recognition as center of excellence is a big deal.
Absolutely.
How long ago did that program start and really get jump started the way it is now? Is it relatively new, or is it?
Yes, about. I wish our VP of the Falls were here, so he was really shepherded the whole thing. The new part is about a year, maybe
about
it's
2 years.
I don't even. Maybe it's 2 years.
Oh wow!
Gone
so
fast.
It's really new.
Yeah, it's new. Yeah, it's really outstanding.
So one of the stories that I think the spokesman told last year was the story of your food pantry, and that students who didn't have food at home could come to the food pantry and get food. It seemed like it was a really important part of many students' lives. What do those efforts look like now, where students can't come into the union to go to the pantry?
Yeah, I know SCC is also doing their food pantry efforts in a different way. At the Falls, I want to give a huge shout out to Heather McKenzie, our student activities director, and our associated student government. They have ensured that our students are continuing to be fed. And so we have on a weekly basis, and we've received grants. Our foundation has given funding to make sure that we can buy those groceries. But our students and our faculty and staff have volunteered in a physically distant and socially appropriate way with masks and with gloves to pre-package boxes. And we're going to do it again this Friday. I'm really excited. I'm going to help. We're distributing food until it runs out, and students just drive through. We have a process set up where essentially they make appointments, so we know it's not just like come one, come all, because we want to make sure that the neediest students are being served. But it's a true testament to the commitment of the community colleges to the whole student, and we're really, really proud of our folks for that.
I think both of our colleges are really put an emphasis on food issues and food insecurities over the last few years. We have a huge food drive every year. And like Dr. Messina said, our foundation has really helped us distribute food pantries across all of our different locations. Bank of America donated a bunch of money to us this year. And so we've had some real great partners who really recognize what an important element that is to student success. And what we often say is if you're hungry, you can't learn. And so it's a really important part for us these days.
Yeah. You all have talked about the foundation so much today. How do people donate to that?
Well, you just go on our website and it is right there. And I have to thank our foundation board and their generosity and the staff. And we really are doing exceptionally well. And it's an investment in our students and everything from emergency aid to food to, computers or whatever they need. It's been amazing, overwhelming, really. And we're just deeply grateful to our foundation team and the board that leads it and all of the very generous donors in our community. Amazing. We're overwhelmed.
And they do make it easy. Community Colleges of Spokane Foundation, donate now. There's a button. It's not hard at all.
So another question from a reader. How do you plan to accommodate faculty and students who might be at high risk for COVID and may not want to return to the classroom? Will there be alternates for them?
I'll start for the falls, and I know that the President Brockbank will have examples too. Most of our programs, most of them can be accomplished fully online. And before this happened, we did have students who were 100% online. So if someone feels as a student that they don't feel safe and they don't want to return physically, we have a full array of not only instructional programs, but counseling, financial aid services, admissions and records, tutorial online. So we are poised to support them. As far as our faculty as well, they could choose, if that's their preference, they can choose to teach online, and we would accommodate that because we know that we want to protect our high-risk folks. Last spring, we had 24% of our enrollment was online. So it's already a robust part of what we do. This spring, it's about 91% for obvious reasons. So we will continue to have that option for students and faculty. And I'll go ahead and turn it over to
Yeah, so we have, of course, some of those things happening now on our campus as we're having some programs return in those specialized labs areas. And like Dr. Messina said, a lot of it is we recognize there's a personal choice there. And, for our employees, there's protocols that we follow and make sure that we're following, policy and procedure, those kinds of things. And then with students, there's the option for a medical withdrawal or an incomplete or accommodations. And we really take those things seriously and because we have to factor in where the student got funding from, if it's a financial aid issue. And we really want to look at the longevity of what that means for a student to stop out if they can't participate in a program that is ultimately going to be face-to-face for a certain part of the quarter. And so we really deal with it on a case-by-case basis because we know all of our students have unique stories.
This has been fantastic. I've loved talking to all of you, and I want to make sure that you all get a chance to add anything on top of all this, but before we call it a day. So is there anything you all would like to talk about?
Well, I'll say that we are profoundly grateful to our community. We feel very much supported, and we consider it a privilege to serve our community, our business community, our civic community. And we have enjoyed enormous support from business and civic leaders and the state. And so we need you now. And we also need that continued advocacy for our mission. And as I said, we are the solution to the economic recovery, and we are passionate and ready to serve at this very important time in our region and in the nation. So we just consider it a privilege. We're grateful, and grateful to you, Rob, for creating this format for us to visit with you and the broader community.
Thank you. Kimberlee, anything you'd like to add?
Oh, I would just like to add that at Spokane Falls Community College, we've always been very student-centered and very connected to our community internally and externally. by being thrust into everyone working at home, and our students, all of them being online, we found the need very quickly, and actually the ability to reconnect as a community through this virtual environment. And it's made all of us, our faculty who were already very student-centered, but all of us so much more aware of how important that engagement piece is for our students to keep them successful. So out of every crisis, there is an opportunity, and we'll be happy to come back and be able to engage in a different way. But it's given us the ability to be even more sensitive to our students' needs and to our own, and to really support each other to do a better job during this crisis.
Yeah, similar comments for me. I think I would just echo, like, I hope it came across today how optimistic I think we are at Spokane Community College, and being able to see some people come back and realizing that although our kind of world is turned upside down a little bit and there's a lot of negative things to dwell on, there's some real energy and power in coming back and trying to serve students and fulfill the mission of our college. I'm super excited about how we're going to continue to serve our students in the online environment, how we're going to continue to build the workforce. I talked about how important this restart is, and how important our college, what important role our college plays in that environment. And I would echo the same things Dr. Messina said. Our faculty and staff care a lot about our students, and we want to be part of their solution, and we want to be one of those things that is real positive light, and despite some things that maybe aren't so positive. And so we're excited about what the future holds. It might be challenging, but looking forward to it.
Well, I really appreciate you all being a part of this. And I hope that we can do this again, maybe in a couple of months, to catch up again.
Sounds great. We love it.
It'd be great. I learned so much today. It was really powerful. So we are going to continue all of these Northwest Passages virtual community forums this week. Tomorrow, and I'm not going to lie, this one might be a little self-serving, but we're bringing in a financial analyst from Numerica to kind of talk to us about how do you save during a pandemic, what to look for financially, how do you prepare to send your children to college, how do you save for a mortgage, and not just here locally, but nationally. And we wanted to bring in an analyst to really kind of explain the world of money is already complicated enough, and you add this on top of it, it's really complicated. So we want somebody to help with that. Then next Tuesday, we're bringing in former Governor Christine Gregoire, who is leading the state's efforts for how the economic recovery begins to look. So and I think that's going to be really fascinating. And then the head of Northwest Passages, Christy Burns, has a bunch of other things up her sleeves. We're going to be doing programs on music and loneliness and marketing and all of those sorts of things. And then if you haven't seen it already, if you have children at home, we have something called Storytime in the Tower, where we've had just so many people from around the region read children's books so that you can have your kids still have stories. All of these programs are free, and we get a ton of help from the Inovia Foundation and Avista, but it costs way more to produce than what we bring in. So if anyone would like to help, there's a donate button on our site, and that donation is tax deductible. So again, I want to thank the Chancellor and the presidents, and you two have a safe day. You three have a safe day, and keep us educated, okay?
All right. Thank you, Rob. That was great.
Thank you so much.
Stay well.
Yeah.